A warm welcome, my friends, to another edition of the Wellness Talk podcast. I am George Batista, your host and your wellness advocate. Of course, Wellness Talk is the show that goes over the latest in health, healing, nutrition, fitness. We empower you. We give you the up-to-date information, and what you do with it is up to you. But I hope that you're using it well and you're sharing it, because that's how we all get healthy together, right? Hope you guys are doing great, and we've got some various topics for you, and as always, keeping you up to date with all the latest. So the first one today is a new study from the British Medical Journal, and this is exercise is twice as effective as antidepressants at treating depression. And this kind of piggybacks on a study that I did a few months back. It was from the British Journal of Sports Medicine, and they found that higher intensity exercise is just as beneficial, and in some aspects more beneficial than being on antidepressants. So again, we're going to talk about that, but we're really going to highlight this because this is a brand new study. And this basically shows you that exercise is, if exercise were a drug, it'd be one of the best-selling drugs on the planet, right? Really. But it's something you can do for free, and it's something you can do as an adjunct, even if you are on antidepressants, and something we should all be doing to keep ourselves healthy, mind, body, spirit, right? Then from there, brand new information regarding protein for breakfast. I've talked about that many times on the show. It's one of the things that I do, right? I eat protein for breakfast, and I've been doing that for the last 10 to 12 years. I talk about the leptin diet, and that is one of the rules of the leptin diet, is to eat a breakfast containing protein. Well, brand new information from Aarhus University. This is a Danish study, and this is protein-rich breakfast boosts satiety and concentration. Now, those are two good things to have, right? Because number one, you don't want your breakfast to, go through your system so fast that you're hungry an hour or two later, and that you got to, start snacking throughout the rest of the day. So boosting satiety is a good thing. And then, of course, if it helps concentration, that's a good thing too, right? Those of you who are in school, those of you who are working, obviously you want to make sure your concentration is at its peak. Well, it's showing here that a protein-rich breakfast can help with both of those things. So we will talk about that. Then from there, from Wellness Resources, we're going to talk about niacinamide, an antioxidant for pancreas and liver. Niacinamide, for those of you who don't know, is a form of vitamin B3, and it's got a host of benefits. And a lot of people get it confused with niacin, and it is a form of niacin. However, it is a niacin, if you're taking niacin as a supplement, it can give you kind of a flush. That's one of the side effects of taking a lot of niacin. Now, again, the flush is not something that's going to be necessarily harmful, but a lot of people don't like that feeling, don't like that kind of warm flush, so they'll take niacinamide. And so we'll talk about the benefits of niacinamide, why it's important as an antioxidant for your pancreas, for your liver, for detoxification, and all the great things that it does. So we'll dive into that just to keep you guys in the know. And then from there, again, I don't really talk a lot about COVID on this show. I kind of highlight certain things that have come out recently, but there was a huge study that came out probably a week or two ago now. It's the largest study on the COVID vaccines, and they studied 99 million people, and they studied basically the adverse events or the reactions that people were having to these vaccines. This is important. This is really important. This is part of keeping you guys in the know, because I want you guys to know whether you want to take vaccines or not. That's up to you. I would never tell you if you should or not, because number one, it's up to you. It's between you and your doctor, you and your family, and I'm not a doctor. I can't do that anyway. But you guys need to know what's going on out there. And this has become mainstream news. So we've got to highlight this because, again, you guys need to know what's going on. So they're going to talk about the actual percentages of adverse reactions. So I'm going to play a clip because this was talked about on a program called News Nation with Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, by the way, used to be on CNN. And so he talks about it with his doctor. And it's very, very interesting. And again, it's something you guys need to know because it's important whether you decide you want to take boosters or not. It's something you guys need to know. So we're going to highlight that, and we're going to talk about exactly what he says. And then we're going to have another clip as well on the actual percentages. And are those percentages, because they're basically saying that these adverse reactions are extremely rare. Are they? We're going to take a look at that. And there's another clip as well from the High Wire that I'm going to play. So anyway, though, that's what we're going to talk about today. So we got a lot of information, of course, various topics, but things that you need to, just kind of look into. So, of course, go to georgebatista.com as always and check out all the information. And just kind of an update, by the way, on things you should know regarding the show. I've just started a brand new private Facebook group. For those of you who are on Facebook and want to be a part of it, if you go to georgebatista.com, there's a link on the side dashboard that says Rumble TV. Under that, it says join the Facebook group. Just click on that and you can join that as well. And basically the group is to kind of get like-minded folks together and to talk about health and nutrition. I'm going to be on that group regularly, talking about not only this show, highlighting this show. I'm going to be obviously posting the clips from the show, but also I'm going to be doing a lot of interacting there. So I'm going to be doing Q&As. I'm going to be doing live sessions. I'm going to be talking about just in general health and nutrition tips that I use. These are things that I don't do outside of the Facebook group. Remember, this is a private Facebook group. So you guys have to, you have to join the group, and it has to be accepted in order for you to come in. And just so you know, again, this is not for giving medical information or anything like that. I don't, make any claims or give any medical information on that group. This is just for us to share ideas, share, if we're losing weight, what did you do to lose weight? These types of things. And again, it's also going to be talking about this show and updates on this show. I'm going to be doing Q&As. I'm going to be doing all different types of just updates from me in general and things you can take a look at. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're just building a like-minded community. And I want to build a tight-knit community with you guys that we can all have a good time, share ideas, talk about health and nutrition, talk about products, talk about different modalities. And that's the idea of this group. So again, it's the Batista Health Solutions Facebook group. I'm going to call it the BHS group. So check it out. I think you guys will enjoy being on it, and should be a lot of fun, and I think we'll get a lot out of it. So check it out. All right, guys, so let's get started with our articles for the week. All right, guys, so the first one is going to be from the British Medical Journal. Again, it says exercise is twice as effective as antidepressants at treating depression. So we all know, obviously coming out of COVID, we had a mental health crisis. People were locked in their homes. People weren't able to talk with their friends and family, couldn't go to the gym, couldn't do all these things, but yet they kept other things open. But that's a whole nother story. So, but it has been an issue, and we're slowly but surely unraveling that. But it's going to take years. It's going to take years. There's, suicide went up, depression has gone up, antidepressant use has gone up, all these types of things coming out of the pandemic. So, and actually, some of the numbers are prescriptions for antidepressants have risen 21% since the pandemic. So it's really crazy what's gone on. So let's dive into the study. It was a new study published this month in the BMJ, and it finds that exercise is twice as effective as treating depression than antidepressant drugs, and importantly, without the dangerous side effects and risks, right? This was a peer-reviewed study titled Effect of Exercise for Depression, a systematic review and network meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. They analyzed 14,000 people with major depression from 218 separate randomized controlled trials. And the reason why this is significant, because a meta-analysis is basically when they take a whole bunch of studies and they group them together. So this is not just one specific study. This is a whole bunch of studies, and they kind of take the average and they look at the conclusions of all these studies combined. And this is, a significant amount of people. Okay. So the study's researchers then ranked various forms of exercise by how effective they were at treating depression compared to big pharma's, medications. Okay. And exercise appeared equally as effective for people with and without comorbidities and with different baseline levels of depression. The study noted that exercise may be an effective complement or alternative to drugs and psychotherapy. Okay, so making it easy to participate for anyone to participate in the study, researchers found that dance, with its intrinsic restorative and healing powers, is the most effective form of exercise, resulting in reductions in depression. Look at that, dance. Something simple you can do. You could even do that in your home, right? Sometimes I'm doing that like an idiot. I put on, if I'm happy that day, I put on music and I just dance around the house. I try to do that when I'm alone because, the wife and daughter think I'm a nut job. But you know what? It's a good thing to do because it fills your spirit, makes you feel good, right? So dance. So think about if you go to a party, if you go to a wedding and people just love dance. I know I have friends who absolutely love dancing. It's one of the most favorite things they do. It's a great thing to do, okay? So, think about it. Just dancing, why? One of the reasons why, because, right, the endorphins, all the feel-good hormones, all these things are secreted when you're feeling good, you're dancing, you're having a good time, and you're having a good time with your partners and all this type of stuff. Great, great stuff, right? There was also, this kind of piggybacks on a study from 2007 that was published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine that noted that dance may promote wellness by strengthening the immune system through muscular action and physiological processes. It conditions an individual to moderate, eliminate, or avoid tension, chronic fatigue, and other disabling conditions that result from the effects of stress. So think about it for a second, right? When you're stressed, when you're dealing with the sympathetic discharge, right? It could be stress from your work, from your school, from home, or whatever it is you're dealing with, right? That you have that fight or flight response. We talk about it all the time, right? It's that sympathetic drive that secretes the hormones, secretes the catecholamines, makes your heart pump faster, right? It makes everything tense. It thickens the blood. It shuttles the blood to the extremities, right? Because remember, your body doesn't recognize the difference between you running away from the saber-toothed tiger and you just being stressed when you're at work. There's no difference to your body. It's the same chemical reactions, right? So exercise, dance, all these types of things can help to alleviate that. So again, if you are on an exercise program, fantastic. You are well on your way, especially if you're doing it regularly, 5 to 6 days a week. You are well on your way to bringing down all those catecholamines, to giving you, lowering blood pressure, lowering all these things, right? Making yourself feel good, rush of endorphins. This is all those things that happens in there, right? And again, it doesn't have to be strict exercise. It could be a good walking routine. It could be a good dancing routine. It could be just having a good time, whatever. Laughing is also good. So this is a good study, but think about this for a second, okay? Again, antidepressants up 21% since the pandemic, right? But yet, right, antidepressants, right, they were based off of this premise that depression was caused by a brain chemical imbalance, right? Where they've talked, this has been the last 30 years, the psychiatric industry has talked about this brain chemical imbalance and this was part of the reason why they were dispensing these drugs, right? Because there was something wrong. You didn't have enough serotonin. That's why, these medications were serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? They would help to, change the serotonin sequence in your brain, right? To help you with that. Well, last year, what happened? Big study. They realized when they did the meta-analysis that there was no basis for the brain chemical imbalance. That depression in and of itself, and this is what the articles talked about, depression in and of itself is multifactorial. There's a lot that has to do with it. There's a lot that goes into it. Okay, it's not about a brain chemical imbalance. So basically, that has been disproven at this point. So again, you have to look at it doing things on your end as much as you can to try to work with that. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you have to be off these medications or stop these medications. You work with your doctor in doing that, but use exercise as an adjunct. Use exercise as something you can do with it. And maybe eventually you can lower your prescriptions. Maybe eventually you can get off them. Talk to your doctor about doing everything you can to get off it, okay? And or if you're dealing with depression, you're not on it, get yourself on an exercise program. Get yourself in the gym, on the days that you're not doing anything, right? Get off your phone, get off your tablets, get off the TV and work out, exercise, walk, run, dance, whatever it is. I'm telling you, is one of the best things you can do. And studies like this are showing, and of course, we want to see more studies like this. So this is good news and just another reason to get yourself moving besides joint health and besides all that type of stuff. But I talked about that many times on this show. So get moving, and it's good for your brain. All right, next. From Aarhus University, this was a Danish study. Protein-rich breakfast boosts satiety and concentration. So let's talk about it. I've talked about a protein-rich breakfast many, many times on this show. So a new Danish study has explored the link between diet and cognitive function, and the results reveal that a protein-rich breakfast can increase satiety and improve concentration. The study followed 30 obese women aged 18 to 30 for 3 days, during which the women consumed a protein-rich breakfast, a carbohydrate-rich breakfast, or no breakfast at all. The women's sense of satiety, hormone levels, and energy intake were measured at lunchtime. Their total daily energy intake was measured as well. And this is what they found, and I'm quoting directly from the article. We found that a protein-rich breakfast with sour milk products, and that's what they use. Now you can use many things, but this is specifically what they use, sour milk products and oats, increased satiety and concentration in the participants, but it did not reduce the overall energy intake compared to skipping breakfast or eating a carbohydrate-rich breakfast, okay? So at least what it did was it increased satiety. That's a big one, right? Because one of the things I talk about is leaving space between breakfast and lunch. Now, I normally leave 5 to 6 hours between that because you want a little bit of like an intermittent fasting between your breakfast and your lunch. You don't want to be snacking, right? You want all your hormone levels to get back to normal. You want your normal hormones to cycle. You want your leptin, your ghrelin, your insulin, right? All these things to get back to what they need to do and to cycle through exactly what they need to do in your body, okay? You want your triglycerides to go back down to normal. You want your body to start to burn some triglycerides in that time. This is some of the reasons why you leave space between your breakfast and your lunch, right? And then again, between your lunch and your dinner. But eating a breakfast containing protein also helps with satiety. So basically what it does is it actually, it makes you more full, okay? That's a good thing because then you could make it to your lunch. Now, talking about the leptin diet, again, this is one of the things I talk about. And, kind of going back to that for a second, okay? Your metabolism, and I've talked about this before, and this is part of the leptin program that I talk about. Your metabolism can increase by 30% for as long as 12 hours from a high protein meal. This is what the science says, okay? So it's the calorie equivalent of a 2 to 3 mile jog. Think about that for a second, okay? So when you have a high carbohydrate breakfast like pancakes and waffles and those types of things, those only enhance your metabolic rate about 4%, which is very little, especially if you're not eating any protein with it, okay? So this is extremely important. So especially if you're if you're over 40, this is extremely important. Now, some people may be able to run their metabolism just fine on carbohydrates, but as you get older, it gets harder to do because then, more carbohydrates in the morning, especially if you're not working out, can turn into more weight gain, okay? So just a couple of things and a couple of signs of a poor breakfast. Number one, you're unable to make it 5 hours to lunch without cravings or your energy crashing. Number two, you're more prone to strong food cravings later in the afternoon or evenings, okay? And, this is extremely important. These are things that you have to take a look at. Okay. So eating breakfast like eggs, in the morning are great, turkey, bacon, stuff like that. Even plant-based stuff that has protein, plant-based, plant-based sausages, plant-based, whatever it is, contain a certain amount of protein. So this is very important. But what they're saying here, and again, I'm going to quote from the study, the results confirm that protein-rich meals increase a sense of satiety, which is positive, with regard to preventing weight gain. Okay. And however, the results also suggest that for this nutritional strategy to be effective, it's not enough just to eat a protein-rich breakfast. And this is kind of what I go back to with the leptin diet. This is just one rule of the leptin diet. Okay, there's 4 more rules on it, and then on top of that, there's the exercise piece. So you got to move, you got to eat fiber, and you also have to exercise on top of it. So again, eating breakfast that contains protein, extremely important. It's great for the liver. It's great for ramping up the metabolism. It's great for satiety. It's great for concentration. We're seeing that. We're seeing that in the studies, okay? But you have to couple that also with the other pieces, okay? Leaving space between your meals. Don't eat before you go to bed. Exercise. Eat fiber. Making sure you're taking a good nutrition. It's all comprehensive. And I guarantee you that if you do these things for a long period of time, long-term basis, you will see differences in your hormones, your metabolic rates, your weight, your energy, your cravings will decrease, right? You won't find yourself in the refrigerator trying to snack every 2 seconds, these types of things. You're going to see major differences in that because you're going to start to see metabolic flexibility. And this is what I talk about all the time, metabolic flexibility. Your hormones are going to be in check. So again, brand new information, but good news. Again, breakfast in the morning. And it also, again, helps concentration, right? Because they talk about breakfast being the most important meal of the day. And I would agree. And for me, it's always helped me even when I'm going out and doing things and concentrating and working with people and all these types of things. I notice the difference if I don't eat breakfast. Now, I'm one of those guys that has to eat breakfast. I just do. I love breakfast. It's one of my favorite meals. Now, my wife can go through the day all the way till 12, 1 o'clock without eating. And especially if she's focused on something and she's doing something in the morning that she can't stop doing. I can't do that because my brain will feel it. My body will feel it. I just need breakfast. And again, I've been eating breakfast since I'm a kid and I love it. So it's just part of my system. So something to think about, in general regarding eating and regarding food plans and stuff like that. Take a look at it, try it, see how it feels, and let me know. Let me know how it feels. If you want, join the Facebook group, start that type of diet, like the leptin diet that I talk about, and let me know how that goes for you. And then, again, I'll be on that group talking about it as well, and helping people out, helping you guys out as well. So check it out, and I think you will enjoy it. All right, next, we're going to talk about niacinamide, and this is from Wellness Resources. This is niacinamide, an antioxidant for pancreas and liver. So let's talk about it, and we'll talk about exactly what niacinamide is and why it is so important. So vitamin B3, niacinamide is a multifaceted nutrient known for its roles in liver and cholesterol health. So niacinamide, or it's also known as nicotinamide, is a non-flush form of vitamin B3 used for a variety of functions such as glucose metabolism, antioxidant production, cellular energy, anti-aging mechanisms, and more. So niacin, a lot of people, they kind of recognize it by the other name niacin, okay, which is a general name for vitamin B3 and needs to be converted into its bioactive form. Okay, so niacinamide or nicotinamide, what it does is it adds what's called an amide or amide group attached to the niacin, and it makes it more metabolically active. Okay, so niacinamide is the active form, and again, it doesn't flush. And this is one of the differences between niacin and niacinamide. Niacin, if you take straight niacin, it tends to have this flushing effect where you get kind of this heat flush. It's a temporary thing, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not something that's going to land you in a hospital necessarily or anything like that. It's just kind of a side effect of taking a lot of niacin. Niacinamide doesn't do that. It's non-flush. So let's talk about exactly what niacinamide does and the critical components of it. So niacinamide is critical for numerous reactions as it metabolically converts into an enzyme compound called coenzyme I, or NAD. A lot of people know about NAD. NAD is kind of like all the rage now these days when it comes to supplements. And NAD is short for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Try to say that 5 times fast. Okay. And NAD is produced, basically, it's extremely involved with ATP production or energy production. Okay. So these niacinamide enzymes are a major part of your mitochondria and your cell energy system. So NAD, for example, is a compound for the SIRT1 and SIRT3 anti-aging genes. I've talked about the sirtuins on this show. They're kind of like your anti-aging longevity genes, and anything you can do to strengthen them, to elongate them, to make them work properly is a fantastic thing. So NAD is one of the things that helps to work with the SIRT1, SIRT3 genes, the anti-aging genes, that helps with weight, lipid metabolism, and metabolic pathways. So it's a good thing. NAD also, and that and other coenzyme forms of niacin, are required on a cellular level to metabolize carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and basically metabolize them into ATP or energy. So it's one of the ways you get your energy from food, right? It's that whole pathway that helps to convert everything into adenosine triphosphate or ATP to make your mitochondria work properly. There are more than 400 enzymes require NAD to turn on these metabolic reactions, making niacin and its bioactive forms crucial to your health and your overall physiology. So NAD has to be present, NAD has to be working properly, and again, it's a long chain in this whole process of making energy, making ATP. Now, let's talk about niacinamide in terms of antioxidant properties. So, your pancreas has what's called beta cells. Okay, so this is the big cells in your pancreas, and one of the things that niacinamide does, it promotes healthy beta cell function in your pancreas, which in turn helps to promote healthy glucose metabolism, right? Because that's one of the things that your beta cells help to secrete is insulin, and helps with glucose metabolism in general. So niacinamide is intimately involved with your pancreas beta cells, making sure that you're getting a healthy glucose metabolism and making sure that there's less free radicals in the process. Next, niacinamide also inhibits INOS, what's called inducible nitric oxide synthase. Now, I've talked about nitric oxide on this show. There's different forms of nitric oxide. You have eNOS, which is endothelial nitric oxide, which I've talked about. Okay, it's what's produced. It's what I talked about it last week. Vasodilation. It's a great thing to have. It's something you need to make sure blood is flowing properly through your through your arteries. Okay, but there is also another form of nitric oxide called inducible nitric oxide, which is inflammatory. This is pro-inflammatory. Okay. And this is something you don't want. And it's a byproduct, okay? It's a byproduct of inflammation that's going on in your system. Well, one of the things that niacinamide does actually inhibits the production of INOS, and it helps to protect the endothelial lining of the blood vessels, supporting cardiovascular health, okay? So it actually helps to inhibit the INOS and helps to enhance the eNOS. This is what you want. Extremely important, okay? And also, niacinamide works with vitamin C and vitamin B2 as well, just so you know that, to create these metabolic effects as well. Okay. Now, there was a study of a high-fat, high-fructose diet that were fed to rats, and the group was supplemented with niacinamide or nicotinamide, And what they found was these rats had lower free radical activity and less oxidative stress in the liver when they were supplemented with the niacinamide. Good stuff. Next, a recent randomized clinical trial published in 2022 demonstrated the benefits of niacinamide in the liver on cholesterol metabolism. Participants consumed 1,000 milligrams a day of nicotinamide for 12 weeks. Compared to the control group, notable benefits were found in the quality of life with those who received the supplement. So they found after 12 weeks, there were good benefits that these folks found taking the nicotinamide. Also, new research finds that niacinamide is used in retinal tissues for the eye, buffering against metabolic stress and aiding mitochondria activity, providing protection for eye and vision health. This is great. This is great because, again, as you get older, right, eyes may start to have issues. You're dealing with maybe dry eye syndrome. You're dealing with all different types of inflammation in the eye. You're dealing with weaker eye muscles, all types of, maybe even macular degeneration. Well, we're looking at niacinamide now helping to actually buffer and helping with, the stresses that the eye is dealing with. Now, if you combine that with the vitamin A's, right, with the luteins and the zeaxanthins, all these types of things that are great in the eye, plus fish oil, which helps to collect in the retina of the eye as well, you're on a great program to help not only lubricate the eye, but help to kind of lessen the possibilities of dealing with any kind of eye issues as you get older. Okay? Basically what we're looking at is decreasing our risk of any kind of eye issues. And again, niacinamide now is found to help with that as well. Now, let's look at food sources of niacin. Animal proteins provide the highest bioavailable amounts of niacin. The best sources are beef, liver, which provides 15 milligrams per 3 ounces. Okay, chicken and turkey also provide about 10 milligrams. Okay, keeping in mind that those of you who are on plant-based or plant-strong diets, you have to take a look at it. Okay, you can find niacin in nuts and legumes and grains. Okay, they may be a little less bioavailable in those forms, so you might have to eat more of those. But just be careful with that. I always suggest those folks who are on plant-based, vegan, or whatever you want to call it, definitely take a supplement just to make sure you're protecting against any gaps that you would normally find in those types of diets. Also, the amino acid tryptophan can convert to niacin, but it has a poor conversion rate and requires enough B2, B6, and iron to perform this function. So just something to keep in mind, okay? Those of you who want to take a look at niacin or niacinamide, you can take a look at Wellness Resources. They have a couple of products that contain that. The big one is Lipid Helper. It contains 500 milligrams of niacinamide per capsule. It also contains other nutrients as it's called peristilbene and milk thistle and silymarin to help with the liver, okay, and also to provide metabolic lipid and blood sugar benefits as well. And you could also combine this on the cardiovascular side with leptinol, cardio helper, super coenzyme Q10, and PQQ. So those work very well with lipid helper and or just the supplements containing niacinamide. So basically, niacinamide is a good thing. You obviously need it, especially on the energy side. The big thing is the energy side for the pancreas, for blood sugar metabolism, and to act as an antioxidant and for cholesterol metabolism. Good stuff. So check it out. And again, even a multivitamin from Wellness Resources or from any other brand that you choose, take a look at the form and make sure that it's niacinamide in the back, because again, it's going to be easier to convert, it's going to be easier to take in and easier for your body to absorb, okay? So niacinamide, good stuff, and check it out. All right, next I'm going to play a couple of clips, and again, this is something you guys need to really kind of get a grasp of. So obviously, we've come out of COVID, we've got vaccines, they're still pushing vaccines out there, and again, I don't tell people to get vaccinated or not. That is your choice, whether you want to do it or not. I don't believe in mandates, just so you know that, okay? I think that everybody should be able to make the choice for themselves. Now, with that said, they've been trying to get studies on, they've been leaking little studies here and there, and through FOIA requests from Pfizer and from all these pharmaceutical companies, they have been getting certain studies and certain things to see what's been going on with the vaccines and what kind of any and all side effects that have come out with vaccines. Now, we all know the VAERS system is the vaccine adverse events reporting system, has reported thousands and thousands of vaccines adverse events that have happened since the COVID vaccines were introduced. Keep in mind that the VAERS system was established by the CDC. That is their own system. That was one of the trade-offs, that they had to establish that system to keep track of adverse reporting events from vaccines. A lot of people don't know that, okay? It was their own system that it established, okay? So now, that's a backdrop, but understand something, okay? They just did a study. It was the largest study done on vaccine adverse events. 99 million people in this study. This just came out like 2 weeks ago. What they found was a certain percentage of these vaccines had very significant side effects. Why is this important? Because they didn't talk about that before. Matter of fact, this is the first time that mainstream media is actually talking about adverse events with vaccines. This is the first time, right? Because you can't get around it. You can't get around it. Okay, this was a huge study. Now, this is what they say in the study. They're basically saying that these adverse events are rare, okay? And that basically downplaying it, saying there's nothing to worry about, okay? We want to, my question is, how rare are they? Okay, because you have to remember that, right? There is an expected side effect when you're taking some kind of drug, when you're taking a vaccine, whatever it is. There's always an expected side effect. That's just a consequence of that, right? And when that expected rate exceeds what they're actually expecting, is that a problem? You ask yourself that question, is that a problem? So we're going to talk about it. And how are they downplaying this? So the first clip I'm going to play is a clip from News Nation. And this is Chris Cuomo talking about it with his doctor. And he talks about this study and listen to what the doctor says in this and why it's something to really think about, because again, of how they downplay us. But again, this is mainstream information now, mainstream information that's coming out, and something you guys need to be aware of if you plan on taking any boosters or vaccines moving forward. So again, check out this clip from News Nation.
Good news is the largest COVID vaccine study to date was just released. 99 million people from around the world. It found that there is an extremely rare but increased risk for certain neurological, heart, blood, and brain disorders after taking the vaccine. But how rare is okay? And how much more is it now identified in people than before the vaccine? And also, what about all the long COVID symptoms that people are presenting? Why didn't they ask the 99 million about that? Those are all really good questions, right? You know how I know? They're not mine. They come from my doctor, double board certified physician, long COVID clinical specialist at Terrain Health, Dr. Robin Rose. So you called me about this and said, boy, the headline makes it sound like you got nothing to worry about. The opposite is true. Why?
So the background of the study is that they looked at, like you said, these 99 million people across 10 sites, 8 countries, and they identified these very significant problems that were neurologic, cardiac or hematologic issues. But these are problems that with any therapeutic or vaccine that is coming out, you wouldn't want to see these issues, right? Or you wouldn't expect to see these issues. And if you did, you'd want to see them at a low rate. And there were a handful that were flagged, as safety signals that were 2 to 3 times higher, when they looked at, they had the expected versus what the observed outcomes would be. And they were 2 to 3 times higher. anyway.
So wait, what does that mean? What does expected versus observed mean?
So when you're rolling out, a therapeutic, a treatment, a vaccine, you expect maybe you'll have some side effects, mild, moderate, or severe side effects. So when they saw, when they were looking at the data, they knew that some of the side effects, that these serious side effects, the outcomes that were observed by the data collected by these 99 million people were higher than what they had expected. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you told me that as an analogy, you were like, if we were talking about like cancers or things like that, people would not be happy about what they're seeing in this study. How so?
So this is what I mean. So when the headlines come out about vaccine, right, versus COVID, the vaccine, it's downplayed in a lot of ways, or the headlines downplay what's happening. Okay. And the issue is that in our society and in healthcare in general, we always do care about the few or the rare things that happen, right? So, we colon cancer screen everyone that's 45 years and older, in the hundreds of thousands or millions of people that need to get screened, because we're worried about the 32 out of every 100,000 people that get it per year, right? Same thing with women and cervical cancer, 7.7 females out of every 100,000 per year get cervical cancer. These are rarer, fewer events that occur, but we care about them. We don't downplay them, and we screen these people and we try to prevent it from happening. That was my point.
And here we're saying it's an acceptable loss.
And here we're saying it's an acceptable loss. That's the thing. And you understand what she's saying. She's saying that, of course, they expected a certain amount of adverse reactions, right? And again, any pharmaceutical is going to do that. But what they observed was more than what they expected. This is where it gets into scary territory. Think about that. This is where it gets scary. The number of adverse events that are being reported is well beyond what was actually thought. Okay. When you look at a study like this, and then you look at the actual vaccine adverse event reporting system, and you look at the number of events that have actually gone on and have been reported, it's a very scary thing. So you have to understand that. You have to look at this and say, yeah, there is an inherent risk in this, right? There is a risk in this game. Yes, of course, there's a risk in getting COVID too. Okay, obviously. But there is also a risk on the other side. Okay, it's not without risk. I'm going to play another clip from the High Wire with Del Bigtree. Del Bigtree is he's got a huge foundation that has brought lawsuits to get information like this. He's actually sued vaccine manufacturers. He's sued, government agencies, or their nonprofit has sued government agencies and things like this to get this information, because people need to know their risk in these types of things. And he is livid. He is upset. Okay. And absolutely justifiably so, because we weren't told this. You weren't told this. Mainstream media didn't cover any of this. It did cover a little bit of myocarditis, but kind of swept it under the rug. And still in this day, what are they doing? They're basically downplaying it. Listen to what Del Bigtree says, and watch how Del Bigtree talks about the actual numbers themselves and how they're downplayed. It's something to see.
And I want to point out this study that came out just last week, once again, because I think it just buttons this all up. When we look at the headlines, last week, largest COVID vaccine study ever, finds shocks are linked to a small increased risk of neurological, blood, and heart disorders, but they are still extremely rare. I talked about this, rare being 6 times the amount of myocarditis compared to those that didn't get the shot.
Right.
That is, myocarditis is rare. If you're increasing the risk by 6 times, here's what should be said to everyone on every news station. If you have just suffered myocarditis, we have reason to believe that that was definitely caused by the vaccine. You should go in and report it immediately. Go to your doctor. Can you imagine if they said that? Yeah. Can you imagine if on CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all of these, that Peter Marks said, we may have made a mistake. As it turns out, the anti-vaxxers were right. This is causally linked to myocarditis. And so any doctor that told you couldn't have possibly been the vaccine, now we must assume that it was, because it's 6 times more popular to happen after a vaccine than not at all, which means that it's most likely caused by the vaccine. Please get back to your doctor, have them submit it to the CDC, and now we've got to start paying your medical bills because we effed this up.
Wow. Well said. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. Again, when you take a product, right? And this is what people didn't think about, okay? When you take a product, think of a cholesterol medication, think of a blood pressure medication, think of any of these medications you can think of that have been used for 50 years, 60 years, whatever it is, okay? Think of those medications that have been studied for years, that have gone through trials and stuff like that, right? Even those medications, there is an inherent risk when you take them. You understand that. You understand that there are side effects, right? When you take those medications, blood pressure, blood sugar, whatever, you can name the medication. So here's the problem. The problem is that the vaccines, when you look at the history of the actual COVID vaccines, number one, prior to use, okay, they were never studied on human beings, ever. They were never studied. This mRNA technology of these vaccines were studied for the last 30 years because they've tried to do it and they tested it on animals, monkeys, and these types of animals, okay? But they were never able to actually study it in humans. Why? Because there was problems. There was constant problems with the animals. There was either injury all the way up to death with these animals. So of course, it was never studied on humans. Now, COVID comes around, and now these vaccines are released through emergency use authorization after 2 months of study. 2 months, which they excluded pregnant women, by the way. And then they told pregnant women to take it later on. But after 2 months of study. Now, for me, think about it. You have to think about if you want to take a product that has a safety study of 2 months. Again, you guys can decide for yourself if this is something that you really want to think about, you want to look into. Do your homework. Like I always say on the show, we're going to provide you the information. You guys have to take it on yourself, talk to your doctors, talk to your families, do your research and really see if it's something that you want to do. Okay? It's up to you. I'm just providing you this information, but I want to keep you guys informed. And I will continue to keep you guys informed with all this information that's going on, and do with it what you will. So just something to keep in mind, guys. As always, I give you the truth here, and hopefully you guys at least can have your eyes open if you didn't know this information, and maybe, do some research, do some study, and, take some responsibility. So that's about it. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's always a pleasure and an honor to bring you this information. And thank you for taking this time, because I know you guys could be doing other things, but I'm glad you're with me. Don't forget to check out the Facebook group. You can go right on the website and click on it and join the Facebook group, or you can do it through Facebook. Again, it's BHS or Batista Health Solutions. Come hang out with us. It's going to be a fun group. I think you'll enjoy it. And, let's all get healthy together. Take care, guys. Have a good day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and control your health.